And at one point, all of a sudden, people stopped. The police had indicated that there had just been they called it a robbery or whatever, and that they were closing down the museum.
It's the kind of daylight heist you don't see coming. A crew of thieves hitting the Louvre right under everyone's noses. $100 million in crown jewels gone in minutes. And now new video allegedly shows the thieves lowering themselves down the side of the museum. The Louvre's director is speaking out too, admitting a quote, terrible failure, and even offering her resignation. And coming up, I'm going to be speaking with someone who was actually there, an FBI agent who saw it all unfold inside the museum. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. It's the kind of heist that you would expect to see in a movie like Ocean's 11, not in real life and certainly not at the Louvre. A group of thieves somehow pulled off one of the boldest museum robberies of the century in broad daylight, stealing $100 million worth of France's crown jewels just steps away from the Mona Lisa. And now we are seeing wild new video that appears to show their slow getaway, literally lowering themselves down the side of the Louvre on a construction lift right in front of unsuspecting tourists. They weren't sprinting and they weren't hiding. But that's not the only twist. The Louvre's own director is now admitting to a massive security failure, not enough cameras covering the outside of the museum, and even she offered to resign over what she called a terrible failure.
Au fond, nous n'avons pas repéré suffisamment à l'avance l'arrivée des voleurs. Il y a quelques caméras périmétriques, mais qui sont vieillissantes.
We're going back to Paris because the story that stunned the art world just got bigger. And for the first time, we're hearing from someone who actually witnessed it happen inside the museum that morning. So before we bring that guest in, I do want to talk about how all of this happened. It was just a regular Sunday in Paris back on October 19th. The museum was packed. You have people lining up under that glass pyramid, cameras out, coffee in hand, ready to see the Mona Lisa. But unbeknownst to spectators, a crew of 4 thieves was quietly setting up for the huge robbery. According to French officials, at around 9:30 in the morning, they pulled up right outside the Apollo Gallery, the room that houses the French crown jewels, in what looked like a moving truck. They were wearing reflective vests, they had cones out, even a construction lift attached to the back. It looked like just another maintenance crew, but it wasn't. They extended that lift up to a second floor window. They used a disc cutter to slice through the glass, and within minutes, they were inside. Alarms did go off, but not soon enough. The Louvre's director, Laurence Descartes, later admitted the museum didn't have full video coverage around its exterior, allowing the thieves to slip in unnoticed until it was too late. And that gave the thieves just enough time to pull off what prosecutors called a highly organized commando unit. They smashed open display cases, snatched 8 royal jewels, and by 9:38 a.m., they were gone. Down the lift, onto motorbikes, and out of sight before police even arrived. Among what they took, priceless pieces. The emerald necklace and earrings of Empress Marie-Louise, a diamond bow brooch, and the pearl diadem of Empress Eugenie. The kind of treasures Napoleon himself once gifted his wife, now vanished in broad daylight. I will apologize if I am botching the French in this story. Now, the only thing left behind, a damaged crown. Eugenie's imperial crown dropped near the scene as they fled. And just when it seemed like this couldn't get more unbelievable, new footage has now surfaced allegedly showing the robbers slowly lowering themselves down from the Louvre on that lift in full view of tourists. But that's not the only new video turning heads. Another clip obtained by French broadcaster BFM TV appears to show someone inside the Louvre's Apollo Gallery, standing in a bright yellow vest right next to a glass display case, possibly as the robbery was happening. Now, it's short and shaky, but it could be the first real look at the heist from the inside. Meanwhile, investigators may finally have their first big break. Police say they found DNA inside one of the helmets and gloves left behind at the scene, and they're now testing it in hopes that they can secure a match. So in just a few minutes, we'll be joined by someone who knows exactly what goes into tracking art thieves, a former FBI agent who actually witnessed the chaos firsthand. But before we get there, let's talk exactly about what the thieves took. There's certainly a price tag to it, but when you're talking about these items, they are priceless. This wasn't just jewelry. These were pieces of history. According to Paris prosecutors, the total value of the jewels is estimated to be worth 88 million euros. That's about 102 million US dollars. Now, what they took in those 7 minutes, it reads like a royal inventory. First, the diamond and sapphire set worn by Queen Marie Amélie and Queen Hortense, an entire parure that included a tiara and necklace. The diadem alone has 24 Salon sapphires surrounded by over 1,000 diamonds. It is so intricate, parts of it could detach and be worn as brooches. Then there's the emerald necklace and earring set that Napoleon gave to his second wife, Marie Louise of Austria. 32 emeralds, hand-cut, surrounded by more than 1,100 diamonds. They had initially grabbed 9 items, but 1 was recovered, meaning 8 items that they grabbed are still missing. And the fear among experts is that they may never be seen again, because if the thieves melt them down or cut stones out separately to sell them, the pieces lose everything that made them priceless. Now, after the chaos of Sunday's robbery, the smashed glass, the empty display cases, and the global headlines, the Louvre has reopened. As of Wednesday, October 22nd, visitors are once again lining up beneath the iconic glass pyramid, the same one that was sealed off just days ago under police tape. The Apollo Gallery, where the jewels were stolen, remains closed, but the museum itself is back open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. But inside France's Senate chambers, something else was unfolding. The same day, the museum's director, Laurence Descartes, appeared before the French Senate to address the heist. She laid it out plainly. The Daylight Crown Jewel heist was a, quote, terrible failure, and she took full responsibility. She even offered to resign, though the culture minister refused. Descartes confirmed that inside the museum, alarms and cameras worked perfectly, but outside, that is where the weak spots were, and that is where the thieves struck. She revealed that some perimeter cameras are aging and don't cover every facade. Crucially, the balcony of the Apollo Gallery where the theft happened wasn't under surveillance at all. In her own words.
Au fond, nous n'avons pas repéré suffisamment à l'avance l'arrivée des voleurs. Il y a quelques caméras périmétriques, mais qui sont vieillissantes. Mais le parc est très insuffisant, ne couvre pas l'ensemble des façades du Louvre, très clairement. Et malheureusement, du côté de la galerie d'Apollon, la seule caméra qui est posée en direction de l'ouest, et donc ne couvrait pas le balcon concerné par l'effraction.
Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, one of the most watched shows on YouTube, I need to take a moment and talk about our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. They have more than 1,000 attorneys, and they win a lot. They've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. And in the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That's 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. You can do it with just 8 clicks on your phone. So if you've been hurt and you need to start a claim, go to www.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen or click the link below. Descartes also suggests that adding barriers would help to keep vehicles off the museum's perimeter, and even floated a police station inside the Louvre. And speaking of changes, earlier this year, French President Emmanuel Macron announced what appears to be a much-needed plan for renovations to the museum. He outlined the Louvre New Renaissance Project, a decade-long plan to expand and upgrade the museum. Key points include a new entrance, a dedicated climate-controlled room for the Mona Lisa, and modernized underground spaces and improved visitor flow throughout the museum. Director Descartes has been vocal about the need for upgrades, noting threats to the museum's infrastructure, including water leaks, temperature fluctuations, and noise issues. Joining us now to talk more about this is someone who was at the Louvre the day this heist happened. Harry Trombitis is a retired FBI agent. Harry, I know you were with your wife at the Louvre. Walk us through what you saw that morning.
Well, we were there for I guess a somewhat private tour, small group tour, and of course we got there early. So we were standing around in the inside the Louvre grounds. There's a number of statues and things in the grounds area. There's a kind of a circular drive. We were standing, waiting for our small group to arrive, and there are a lot of people already there, milling around the area. I saw 3 or 4 military men with machine guns standing off to the side, and being law enforcement, I thought, well, I'll just go up and say hi to them. So in my best bonjour, communicated with them briefly, and they didn't seem to be aware of anything going on and that. So I don't think anything had occurred at that point, at least that they were made aware of. So we waited a little bit longer, and then our tour guide showed up, and we got together as a group. She checked us in, and then she took us inside the Louvre. We went into an entrance that I guess would be reserved for people that already have reservations, small groups kind of thing. We walked into the Louvre, and I believe we were on our way to our first viewing of, I assumed it was, something like the Mona Lisa. I'm not 100% sure, but we're walking down this hallway, and we walked, a good ways, and of course there's lots of people ahead of us in that. And at one point, all of a sudden, people stopped, and we couldn't hear anything. We couldn't see why they stopped or anything. But after a brief pause, people started to come back our way, and head back down the hallway where we just had come from. So we didn't really have any idea why. Nobody was saying anything. Those people that we saw that were coming our direction were very calm. There was no indication that there had been any problem or any concern. So we kept walking down to the hallway towards our first exhibit viewing, and at some point our tour guide received a message of some type on her phone that indicated that the police had indicated that there had just been they called it a robbery or whatever, and that they were closing down the museum at that point, and that everybody needed to exit. So she's saying, this has never happened before. I don't know what's going on. There's been some kind of a burglary or robbery. Something about somebody took some jewels. And she said, I really don't know anything more than that, but we need to exit the building. So we went ahead and just turned around and again followed the group of people that that we saw exiting out the door, and went out into the courtyard or into the open area where between the Louvre and by that circle driveway that I had mentioned. And she talked to us again a little bit more. She said, I can just tell you that the museum's going to be closed for the rest of the day. She said, we'd be happy to reschedule you at a later time, or give you replace your money, refund. But she said, that's all I know. We're done for the day. We can't go in. So at that point, we kind of broke apart as a group, and my wife and I knew that we're going to have to catch some kind of transportation back to the hotel and that. So I didn't want to call, for an Uber right there. I wanted to walk a little ways and get a little ways because there were thousands of people around. And one of the things that I had learned, and I did not know, is it's one of the most well-visited museums in the world, and with an average of 30,000 people that come every day to the Louvre. And so anyway, we continued to walk on to an area where it was a good spot for us to call the Uber, and we didn't hear anything more about it. I'm checking my phone to see what news is there. The best that I could find out was that again there had been some kind of a break-in and stolen, the French crown jewels,
Right.
and no indication at that point. I think I heard that there were 4 people supposedly, allegedly involved, but they may have made their escape on motorcycles, and that actually made a lot of sense to me because having driven or having Ubered around in that area there, there's 2 lanes, and it's pretty crowded. So if they would have tried to escape in a vehicle, I would imagine they would have had a tough time getting away. But the motorcycles over in Paris they're going between cars, they're lane splitting, they're weaving in and out, and they're going pretty fast between the cars and that. So that seemed to make a lot of sense to me as far as if you were going to want to get away from the Louvre in a fast way, the motorcycle made the most sense in that. So again, we continued on, went back to our hotel that we were staying in, and found out a little bit more information, not much, but that pretty much summarizes what we saw.
Wow. To think, when you find out what it actually was, and then I'm sure as a former FBI agent, you hear about I guess just the detailed plan that they had to allegedly do all of this. What stands out to you from, I think it was about 7 minutes that they were in and out. They get away with roughly $100 million worth of, they're priceless, but $100 million worth of jewels and heirlooms from French history. They get out, they lower down on this, almost lift that, is not moving incredibly fast. And then they're on bikes and they're out. What just stands out to you about how they were able to execute this plan?
Well, it was clear to me that they clearly had a well thought out plan, and they knew the area. That's why I was thinking maybe that it was kind of an inside job, or they were so familiar, they had researched and and been in that location many times before, so they knew exactly the layout of security, where they needed to go. My understanding is they actually stole a lift truck the day before and took that to the scene. I had thought that was a truck that was there from previous construction and that, but apparently, I'm finding out now that it was in fact stolen a couple of days before from a company and brought to the scene. They knew exactly where they needed to be. They knew what tools they needed to break in to the Gallery of Apollo there on the 2nd floor, and they had the right tools to gain entrance into the glass enclosure where the jewels were located. So to me, again, it really seemed like it was an inside job. People that were very familiar with the layout of things. They may have done a dry run or two, prior to make sure that they understood what all they needed to do and where security was going to be. And for them to pull this off while the museum is open was mind-boggling to me. I mean, I would understand if it was, prior, but with all those people milling around in that, I was absolutely surprised. And again, I continue to believe it was it was an inside job. Whether or not it was organized crime involved or not, I guess we'll eventually find out. Other scenarios I was thinking about is, we have people, in our world who, very, for personal gratification, want to have certain items in that, and, certain paintings, and, I had some art theft training in that in my past, and, there are people who not only want those items, not only to maybe sell, but for personal gratification and to keep in their own home, because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like part of history in that. So, I don't know if that was certainly one of the possible scenarios and why somebody would try to pull this off or hire somebody to do these things. Certainly another thing would be that the jewels could have been dismantled very quickly, and sold separately or melted down into another form. Or another possible scenario would be whoever has them wants to hold on to them for a period of time until things cool down and then try to unload them at that point. So I guess we'll find out. I wish I was part of the investigation. I unfortunately am not. But it really baffled me how they were able to pull this off with such precision and only be in there for around 7 minutes. And the whole thing took 7 minutes, maybe 4 minutes inside. And to be able to get away with this, I question, like everybody else, the security that was present, how something like so valuable could, be so unattended, I guess, if you will. And it again, the whole thing just surprised me how they were able to pull this off, and that's why I think they really rehearsed, or they really were so familiar with what they were doing and what they needed to do that they were confident they'd be able to pull it off and get away. So amazing.
It really is, because I also think too, I know the director of the Louvre after the fact said that there were some cameras that weren't operating because they were aging, and it seems like they knew where to go to be maybe out of sight, or where the vulnerabilities might have been in the Louvre, that, to the point of it potentially being an inside job. That seems like something that only someone who would know about the security of the Louvre would know that. As far as the heirlooms and the diamond, because the intricacy of some of these items, one of them has 1,000 diamonds in it. I forget which French monarch it was from, but you think of, if the Mona Lisa was stolen, it would not have as much value if you cut the Mona Lisa up into 4 pieces. But in this case, there's so many valuable pieces that create a crown or a tiara, whatever it may be. From what you know as a member of law enforcement, how do you track down something like this? Like, where do you begin? Where, if you're at the Louvre and you're part of this investigation, what are you doing to try to find these items?
Well, I think you have a multifaceted investigation. Number one, the crime scene itself, and you're looking for hairs and fiber and DNA, and apparently they did find some DNA in that. So you want to get that processed as quick as possible. You want to do witness interviews because with so many people around, you want to try to interview as many of those people as you can, because witnesses all see something different. And what you're trying to do is fill in the pieces of the puzzle. And the more people you can talk to, the more information that you get to complete that puzzle. So certainly want to interview everybody that was in the area at the time. people on the outside as well that maybe saw the truck pull up with the lift and saw the escape. You want to try to interview them as well. You want to pull video from every camera throughout that geographical area and see if there's anything of value that you can gain from that video. It's possible that they only took the motorcycles to a certain part and then dumped them and then they got into another vehicle or something. So you want to try to follow that the escape, if you will, of those vehicles by pulling all the video that you can throughout the area. And then, I think you want to get out information to the media, encouraging anybody that has any information. I'm not sure what France's or Paris, what their Crime Stoppers, if you will, if they have something like that where they offer a reward for information. These crimes are not committed in a vacuum. Somebody knows about this. Somebody knows who was involved, or they have a friend who maybe has leaked some information, maybe about what they intended to do or what they did, and encourage those people to contact law enforcement and provide the information. Again, I'm surprised it's taken this long, to be honest with you. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not part of the investigation. They very well have names at this particular point. I don't know that, obviously, but they may be closing in on these individuals, or they may be completely, in the dark about who these folks were that were able to pull this off. We're just not getting that information. And having had, been involved in serial murder cases and in other kinds of high profile cases before, you want to be very careful about what you say to the media, and because that information is going to go to the public. And who's in the public? The bad guys, the people
Right.
that pulled off this heist, and they're listening to what's going on in the investigation, and that may determine what they do next. So if they would still happen to have the jewels, for example, they may decide to go ahead and move them or do something completely different based on what they're hearing in the media and that. So, I can understand why the French authorities are being somewhat tight-lipped about things. They don't want to give too much information away, but what it does is it leads everybody to believe that they have no idea what happened, and I hope that's not the case. But when I had cases, we always tried to say, hey, we're getting a lot of tips, information is coming in, we're getting suspect names, we're checking all those leads out, we're reviewing video, we're doing this, we're doing that. That makes the public, in my opinion, a little more comfortable that we know what the heck we're doing. And that we're doing everything we can to try to locate these individuals and get those jewels back. Unfortunately, I'm just not hearing a lot. So, but that doesn't mean what they're doing is wrong. It's just different than what we would do in this particular case.
It'll be interesting just to see how long this goes. And there have been art cases. I'm trying to remember one. I think it was from Massachusetts that I don't know if that's even been solved to this day. That went on for a long time at a museum when art was stolen. I mean, obviously in this case, there's so much attention on it. Before we go, Harry, I do have to ask: did you get a chance to see the Mona Lisa or any of the actual exhibits? Like you traveled all the way to Paris?
That's well, I don't want to say that's the sad part. I mean, the sad part is the heist of the jewels.
Sure.
But yeah, that was our last day on our trip. We had been to London and different locations throughout France, and been to Normandy was really the main reason why we wanted to go to Paris, was to take a trip to Normandy and pay tribute to our soldiers and everything. And it just so happened we had a free day on Sunday, and our tour guide, our person that put our trip together and everything, said, "Hey, why don't you guys? Would you like to go to the Louvre on Sunday on your down day before you leave?" And we said, "Yeah, that sounds great." And so, unfortunately, we didn't get to see anything, but I have a feeling that we will remember our trip to the Louvre for a long, long time, even though we didn't see, the Mona Lisa or some of the other things that we were looking forward to seeing. But as far as maybe getting back someday, we've been to London and Paris several times, so I don't see ourselves making a trip just to go to the Louvre. But if we happen to be anywhere in the area and we have that opportunity, I'm sure that we'll want to go. The last time we were in Paris, Notre Dame burned down. So,
Oh, wow.
so
The people of France might be happy if you stay stateside at this point.
that's what I told somebody. I said, if we do go back, I'm going to give the Paris police a heads up, because every time I show up, something bad happens.
Well, Harry Trombitis, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. It's certainly a memorable trip. We'll see how the investigation plays out.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.